Hey guys, this is Nevir and welcome to this new video on how to defend your big blind. In this video, we're going to be talking about the big blind defense, but against many different open raise sizings. Because people make a lot of mistakes against specific sizings because they just don't study it and they don't know what to do against the different sizings. So that's what we're going to be doing today. If you have not studied preflop ranges, there's a really high chance that you don't defend your big blind properly. It's pretty hard, it's a mess, there's a lot of stuff going on, and you're gonna have to spend a lot of time trying to study it and memorizing it. If you guys use GTO Wizard, it's pretty good. You're gonna improve a lot, but the thing is with GTO Wizard, it's that you don't have many different open sizing available. You're gonna have the 2.5x open, which is pretty used at low stakes, so it's pretty good. And you're gonna have the GTO ones with the 2x open, 2.3x from the cutoff, 2.5 and 3x from the small blind. This is pretty good, but let's say you want to know how to play against a 3x open from under the gun. This is not available on GTO Wizard. So that's why I made this range manager file. So if you want to know how to play against under the gun, the 3x open from under the gun, you can see the ranges here. These big blind defense ranges should be available in the library, so you can check it out and you can try to memorize them. So the biggest mistake people make is that they defend the same ranges against many different open raise sizing. But there is a big difference in your big blind defense strategy if your opponent opens 2x or 3x, for example. I'm gonna show you that it's just not the same strategy. You shouldn't defend the same thing, and I'm gonna explain why. So the population usually calls too much against 3x open and not enough against 2x open, just because they don't understand how it affects the big blind strategy. When someone opens pretty big or pretty small, they just don't realize how much they should be tighter or wider depending on the open raise sizing. There are two main reasons why you should call much wider versus small open size. The first reason is that you get better pot odds to see the flop, right? It's pretty obvious. Your opponent opens really small, you can call much wider and realize your equity easily. But the second reason is much more important, and that's what people don't realize, is that if someone opens smaller, the pot will be smaller on the flop, which means that it will cost you less money, less big blind, to realize your equity and see the turn and the river. So let's look at an example where the button c-bets 1/3 and 3/4 on the turn. First scenario, button opens to 2 big blind. The small blind folds and big blind calls. The pot is 4.5 big blind, right? 2 big blind plus 2 big blind plus the 0.5 from the small blind. Then the button's gonna c-bet 1/3, so he's gonna c-bet 1.5 big blind. The big blind calls, pot is 7.5. The button's gonna bet again, 3/4 on the turn, which means he's gonna bet 5.6 big blind. Big blind is gonna call again. And the pot is 18 big blind. So to actually see a flop, a turn, and a river, the big blind had to call 9.1 big blind, right? And in the second scenario, you can see that the button opens to 3 big blind. And as you can see here, the big blind had to pay 13.2 big blind to see the flop, the turn, and the river, which means that you realize your equity, you had to pay 4 big blind more. So when the button opens to 3 big blind, it's gonna cost 4 big blind more to the big blind to fully realize his equity, compared to 2 big blind open. It clearly shows that when your opponent opens really big, you have to be really tight, because every hand's gonna cost you a lot of money. Every time you want to see the turn, every time you want to see the river, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. But when your opponent opens 2 big blind, you can defend a lot of hands, because seeing the turn and the river is gonna cost you less money. So you're getting a better price to see the flop, but you will realize your equity. You will see the turn and the river more cheaply. So this is where it gets interesting. We're gonna take a look at the big blind defense frequency against different open raise sizings at equilibrium, but also for the NL50 population. It will allow us to see two things. First thing is that we're gonna see how much the big blind strategy is gonna change against the different sizings. So we're gonna see how it affects your strategy when someone opens to 3x or to 2x, how wide or how tight you should be. And second thing, we're gonna see where the NL50 population makes the most mistakes. So before we start, I just want to let you know that some of these stats have been found using the Mobius stat checker, as you can see here. So if you're interested to do some MDA, you can definitely check his YouTube channel, Mobius Poker, and as well as his websites, Mobius Poker. And you can buy his products, which will allow you to compare the GTO stats to the population stats. Now, let's take a look at the big blind's call frequency against an open from the small blind. As you can see, there's many different open raise sizings here, and we have the GTO stats and the NL50 population stats. So let's take a look at the GTO stat first. Against the 3x open, which is like the main size from most people, it's the theoretical sizing as well, you should be calling around 40%. It always depends on the reg structure and everything, but overall it should be close to 40%. Now, let's say your opponent opens to 2.5 instead of 3 big blinds. You can see that we should call 10% more. Now, let's say your opponent opens to 2.2 instead of 2.5. Now we can call 15% more. And now let's say he opens to 2x, we can call 71% of our hand. Let's take a look. Big blind against 2 big blind, that's this one. We can see that we should be calling some queen deuce offsuit, some queen 3 offsuit, some jack 4 offsuit. That's how wide you should be. And that's not what people do. They are way too tight because they are not used to defend jack 4 offsuits. But blind versus blind, when the small blind opens to 2 big blind, you should actually call jack deuce offsuit sometimes. That's crazy, right? But now, if your opponent opens to 3 big blinds, you should defend this strategy, which is what you are used to do if you have studied preflop ranges using maybe some GTO wizards. This is what you should be doing. So we can clearly see that even though there is only one big blind difference between this open raise and this open raise, the big blind should actually be calling 31% more against the 2x open. So now let's talk about the NL50 population. When the big blind opens to 3x, they call 37%. So we can see that they still call too tight. They fold a bit too much. But it's pretty close to GTO, right? It's like a 2.5 difference. Now, let's look at the 2x open from the big blind. The NL50 population calls 49, and they should be calling 71. So there is a 22% difference, which means that when you open 2x from the small blind, they will make such a big mistake, and you need to exploit that. So this is why you should be opening 2x from the small blind, because they're gonna fold way too much. So now the same concept applies to all the other positions, right? Let's look at the big blind against the button. When the button opens to 2 big blind, the big blind should actually call 56. But against a 3x open from the button, it should only call 19. There is such a big difference. Let's take a look. Big blind against 2 big blind from the button here, you should call 9 deuce suited. You're probably not calling 9 deuce suited, and I'm probably not calling 9 deuce. I would have called maybe 9-4, maybe 9-5. I would be too tight. So I need to study that a bit more because I've forgotten some of these ranges. You should actually call like king 5 offsuit against a 2x open. But against a 3x open, now you're going to have to fold maybe 9-6. You're going to have to fold king 9, right? There is such a big difference. King 9 is 100% fold. 9-6 is the threshold. So you're going to have to spend some time in this library and just try to memorize some of the thresholds. Like against 3x open, I can call 10-7, but against 2.5, I can call maybe 10-5, I think. I don't know. No, 10-6. And against 2.2, I can probably call 10-4. And against 2x, I know I can call 10 deuce. And you're going to have to do that for all the positions, just so you get some kind of good intuition about the game. Because if you call 8-5 suited against a 3x open because you think, oh, it's a suited and connected hand, then you're going to lose a lot of money. As you can see, again, the NL50 population makes the biggest mistake against the 2x open from the button. We talked about it in the open raise video. They just fold too much against 2x open, and they call way too much against the 3x open because they don't realize how tight they should be. They should call 19, they call 34. We can see that they still fold more against the 3x open than the 2x open, so they don't have the same strategy, but they are still way too wide against the big open and way too tight against the small open, which means that as the open raiser, when we want to steal the blind, we want to use this sizing. From the cutoff, same thing applies. It should call 48 here, but only 16 against 3x. As you can see, against the 2.2, they are pretty close to GTO. Against 2.5, they call way too much. But against 2x open, there is like a 4.5% difference. So this is where they make the biggest mistake against the 2x open. Same thing for the hijack. As you can see, they call way too wide if you open really big from the hijack. So you should actually, there's other things to take into consideration. But yeah, from the hijack, you should definitely open 2x. This is where the big blind's gonna fold the most. Now, there's one thing I wanted to talk about. That's when I used to study these pre-flop ranges. It was crazy when I first discovered that. It's when I realized, oh my God, I'm just not playing well as the big blind because I don't know how much my strategy should change against different sizing. And this is when I realized that against a 2x open from under the gun, you should call ace 8 offsuit. Yeah. But against a 3x open, you should fold ace jack. I think it's 50% fold, as you can see. Can you really see like the difference? Against 2x open, you should call ace 8 against under the gun. It's so non-intuitive, right? I really don't like to call ace 8 against under the gun. But because it's 2x, you can actually call. Even king 9 offsuit could call sometime. But against 3x, you're gonna fold ace 10 off, king jack off, queen jack off. You're gonna fold all these hands, right? So that's when I realized, oh my God, I need to study that because there's so many difference between a 2x open and a 3x open. So yeah, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. Yeah, you can check out the library and see these pre-flop ranges for the big blind. And unfortunately, I can't do the work for you. You're gonna have to spend a lot of time and it's gonna be boring. You're gonna have to memorize everything and it sucks, but it's gonna change your win rate. If you want to play full time, you're gonna play millions of hands. And the big blind is where you lose the most money. So you need to find out strategies to lose less money. And this is one of them.